a ministry, training and opportunities in the field. How do they expect me to do a feature story on that? What training is there? Doctors, lawyers, engineers, sure. But preachers? Why, they just decide and start out and preach.
Can I help you?
Well, yes, I'm looking for Dr. Yost, if you could tell me where his office is.
It's over in the far building. Just let me put these down and I'll show you.
Thanks. I've got to get some information for a story, and quick.
A story?
Mm-hmm. I'm with the news. We're doing a series on the professions.
And you're going to include the ministry?
Maybe, if there's anything to include, more than fellows just reading the Bible, taking a few courses to learn the procedure and starting.
Well, there's a little more to it than that.
Like what, for instance?
There's 4 years of college to begin with. And after that, there's Greek and liturgics and history and practical theology and dogmatics and a continual struggle to learn all you need to know in just 3 years.
3 years? 3 years of what?
Of training to be a minister.
Just a minute, are you sure?
I ought to be, since I'm right in the middle of that training now.
But what could you study that long? After all, what does a minister do?
A great many things. He serves and heals and helps. He counsels and advises. He deals with finances, temperaments, tragedy, sorrow. He teaches the young folks and inspires the older ones. Sometimes he fixes the furnace, directs the choir, and even dusts the pews if necessary. Most of all, he presents the living Christ to men in the sacraments and the spoken word.
Yeah, sure, but still...
Look, I can show you a whole lot better than I can tell you about it, if you have time to walk around the seminary with me.
Okay, I'll take time. After all, I've got to get my story, find out what a seminary is.
Well, some people seem to think it's not much of anything. The students say it's a combination of the hardest work and the most glorious experience they've ever had. The church members know that it's where ministers get their degrees. But those who really understand the work of the seminary say that it's the taproot of the church. The taproot of the church. In this case of the Lutheran Church at its theological seminary in Columbia, South Carolina, the only Lutheran seminary in the South. 15 acres of campus with the possibility of obtaining more at such time as there is need. A classroom building with an air of dignity and permanence. And sometimes an effect of utter confusion inside. 5 rooms where 8 faculty members must teach. Often classes have to be shifted around so much that students don't even know where they're to meet. Unless they check the schedule each morning. A dormitory with rooms for 45 single students. Yet last year we began with more students than we had rooms. Imagine having to sit and wait for a place to sleep. Housing for married students, of which there are many. Homes for the faculty. A library with stacks filled with pertinent information, from ancient Bibles to the latest periodicals. And at one time or another, we need them all, and more. Take a senior writing his thesis, for instance. He'll read approximately 30 books. Approximately 30 seniors. That's 900 books. And I'm not even counting the ordinary research that's necessary for each class lecture. We have a start on our library. We have the only man in the ULCA with both a BD degree and a master's in library science to help us. But without a larger budget to buy more books, his efficiency and our scholarship are hampered. We have the space for a new and adequate chapel, all ready and waiting on the campus, and a student body which has outgrown our present chapel facilities. The future of the seminary depends solely on faculty, facilities, and how large the owning synods of Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida want their seminary to be. How much the Board of Trustees can accomplish. How generous the members of the Lutheran Church will be. For there are plenty of applications, as Dr. Yost will tell you. He's Dr. John Yost, incidentally, our seminary president.
You will note from these applications that we'll have a rather large entering class this year. I deeply regret, however, that there are a number who will not be included in this group because they haven't finished their college work or they don't seem to have the necessary qualifications. I say with regret because there's such a tremendous and urgent need for more men to enter the ministry today, in spite of the increased enrollment and the great number of men who have graduated in recent years. The number of vacant parishes seem to increase rather than diminish. The need is becoming more critical every day. And I wish the whole church could be conscious of this fact. Now, don't misunderstand me. The seminary has no ambition to become a large institution for the sake of mere numbers. We rather pride ourselves on the personal and individual instruction given to students. A minister today must receive the best in education and be prepared under the highest academic and spiritual levels. Now, in your case, for instance, John, you'll soon receive a call to serve a congregation. You may not know it now, but you'll soon find out that you'll need the best preparation possible. For in every congregation there are cultured and refined people, college graduates, and even PhDs.
Well, in that case, I'd sure better get going and learn a lot more fast. Matter of fact, I'd better be going now, unless I can be of any more help. There's my studying, of course, but in addition, there's my wife studying. This is my night to look after things at home while she's off with the clergettes. The clergettes, wives of ministers-to-be, learning all the things a minister's wife should know. These classes are a project of the seminary, too. Women students preparing for careers of Christian service. We don't have many of them, but these students are part of the overall plan. Ordained ministers traveling from miles around on one particular day each week. These make up the graduate school. But the primary purpose of the seminary is training young men to be ministers. Education of the highest order, guided by teachers with the highest qualifications. If a student can translate the Bible from Hebrew and Greek, he can be certain of the meaning of his text. If he studies dogmatics, he will appreciate and profess the whole system of Christian doctrine as taught by the Lutheran Church. If he learns to know and appreciate the glorious church music, he will be better able to work with his own choir and to coordinate sermon and music. If, in addition, there is real fellowship between faculty and students, as 8 busy professors find time some way for the all-important individual relationship with approximately 75 students, well, you just can't fail to receive inspiration and dedicated purpose, as well as education. There's fellowship of a warm and lasting nature among students, too, as young men of varied backgrounds and far-ranging interests live and work together with one great purpose in common. God has called them. He has a use for their lives. There's time for friendly competition also. And campus social life provides relaxation for faculty and students.
But what I can't understand in the account of creation is the difference between the creation of man and all other animate creation.
Well, there's a lot of difference.
All right, what?
Moses shows that God gave man an immortal
Growing
soul.
and learning and thinking together.
Man out of the dust of the ground.
Yes, that's not so.
Of
many
theology and theory, of interpretation and interest, of preaching and serving.
And man became a living soul.
Look, fellas, could we save this for later? Right now, I'd like to talk about something practical.
And sometimes of very prosaic and practical matters, too.
Ben, you're the manager of the boarding club this year, aren't you?
I sure am. You elected me.
Well, when are we going to have steak?
Steak? Good grief, steak too expensive. If my share of the food bill gets any larger, I'm going to vote that we all go on a diet.
We'll have to go on a diet if we don't hurry up and get out of here.
The seminary policy includes practical service and experience, too. Each weekend, all 24 senior students depart for the 24 churches which they serve. Others spend time each week working with the sick and shut-ins. With Sunday school classes. Assisting local ministers with youth work. And everyone must take his turn at leading the seminary's own daily chapel service. My text is written in Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, 2nd chapter, first and second verses. And I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech or of wisdom, declaring unto you the testimony of God. For I determined not to know anything among you save Jesus Christ and him crucified. Paul speaks here directly to our hearts. His message comes with the piercing clarity of a gunshot. He speaks to an age that is in utter confusion. He realizes that if he is to be heard...
Well, I guess you're glad that's over.
I'll say. The professors keep insisting that chapel preaching isn't an examination, but it sure feels like one. Not only now, but later when I have to listen to myself on tape.
So that's what the recorder was for.
Mm-hmm. Grim, isn't it? But I've got to learn how to preach.
You really do feel that you have to preach, don't you, John?
Of course, a minister has to preach. And I'm doing my best to be a minister.
And it seems that that's no easy undertaking. Working, studying, training.
But I've had help. Matter of fact, I've had a lot of help all along the line. There was a wonderful man at our church, way back when I was in high school, who sort of nudged me into deciding. College is a basic preparation.
And the seminary.
Most of all, the seminary. And all the wonderful people working together so that I and all the others like me can learn to do God's work. The presidents of 6 synods coming together at board meetings to lay out policy and decide on method and procedure. The Women's Auxiliary working constantly for needed improvements and additions. Individuals in churches all over the Southeast giving time and money and support so that each year well-trained, soundly prepared new ministers can go out to serve God and His church. Last year, for instance, 28 went straight from graduation to their charges. 2 more to graduate study in preparation for service in the foreign mission field. The faculty and staff here at the seminary. Although I'll have to admit that on the first day I came for my original interview, I was scared half to death.
Have you any special type of service in view?
Yes, sir. I want to be a minister of the church.
What are the principal reasons that impel you to prepare for the ministry?
I love people. And I want to be of service to them. And I'm convinced that most people need to be directed into a personal relationship with God. And I feel that I can serve them best by helping bring them into fellowship with Christ. It was different with the matriculation ceremony, when my probation period was up. Inspiration and determination seemed to flow through me as I really and finally took my vows. Later, there was discouragement, of course. How was I ever going to learn all I needed to know? How did I know I was meant to be a minister anyway? What made me think I was capable of serving a church, interpreting God's word, presenting Christ to others? I'd been wrong. I was still wrong. I'd better give it up now. But I didn't. Because of the interest and encouragement of the other students who made my problem theirs. Because of the understanding and concern of my professors who took time to help me think and search and decide for myself. Because of Christ and the fact that there aren't nearly enough ministers to do His work, which needs to be done. Well, I guess I've delivered my second sermon of the day.
No, John, that wasn't a sermon. That was a statement of fact.
Well, fact, sermon, either way, I didn't mean to talk your ear off.
Don't worry. I've got a good, strong ear, and I've got my story. That's the important thing.
John.
I learned a lot, John. I never thought there was so much to being a minister. And it's more than just an assignment to me now. Thanks for giving me my story, because that's what it is.
A big story about an old and wonderful institution of which the Southern Lutheran Church must be very proud. An important story of what makes a minister, of a great need, and what church members must supply. A vital story if God's work is to be carried on, if the church is to grow and thrive and reach out, if Christian leadership is to be supplied. There's no doubt about it. The seminary is the taproot of the church.